Welcome to episode 20 of the Bit Beacon broadcast. It's February 5th, 2024, and this is a as of yet untitled episode of the Bit Beacon broadcast.
Yep, episode 20.
I'm here, Kodaks, and we've also got...
I'm Ravenheart,
and nobody in the third chair.
Nope.
No.
It's just the two of us.
Just the two of us. We're going to start off with a little bit of show and tell with our what have we been buying, what have we been playing. And I'm going to talk two games that I picked up in the last week. First, I'll start off with one that I haven't played yet, but I did purchase. And it is Atelier Ryza 3. Some might also call it Atelier Thyza 3. If you check out that illustration on the cover.
Wow.
They're like glinting.
Yeah.
Do you see that?
Yep, I see it. Yeah.
I mean, beautiful illustration on the cover. But yeah, that's some chicken wings right there.
I have always liked the art style.
Oh, me too. Yeah. They usually pick an artist that does 3 games. Mm-hmm. And then for the next set of 3 games, they find a new artist that kind of does the visual identity for those 3 games. But they all do sort of share somewhat of a similar identity, but they do have a slightly different look to each of the trilogies.
Can I see the screenshots?
Yeah, go for it.
I know the one that I played, Atelier Iris, is a isometric RPG, but yours is like isometric view.
Okay.
I'm just looking to see if this...
These days, they're more like
third
person over the shoulder kind of adventure RPG exploration.
I like that old style, but, you know.
Yeah. They do throw it back in some ways, but yeah, I think they remade one of the classic Atelier games last year. I have it for Switch. I remember I talked about it on the podcast. I think it was Atelier Marie.
Oh, right.
And that was more of like the top-down kind of isometric sort of view.
Gotcha.
So yeah, maybe they'll remake more of their classic games in addition to making the new ones.
Little quick backstory on one installment in that franchise. It's the one for Dreamcast. There's one for Dreamcast. And when it released, if you put the disc in a Windows system, you'll download a virus that will break your PC.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
They shipped it with a virus on it.
Some dev thought they were being cheeky.
Or
someone at the manufacturing level may have done something too.
I think it was an accident or something. I don't know what.
How does a virus accidentally get on the...
I don't know. I'm sure like modern antivirus software could handle it, but back then... Yeah, it would have, like, really messed you up.
Okay. Oh, yeah, today, I'm sure nothing would happen.
Yeah, right.
But back then, it was, like, open season.
Right.
You know, there were no protections, no Windows Defender.
I can't remember what title that was. I don't have that series memorized so well.
So, for Atelier Ryza, I played the first one on Switch, and then I picked up the second one on Switch as well, which I have not gotten around to yet. But I have been playing more and more on my PS5 thanks to the PlayStation Portal. So I was kind of like, oh, you know what? Maybe I'll...
It's pretty nice, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's been nice, and I don't know. Like I don't want to say... See, I hate and love trophies.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Same.
Like, I think they're fun, but I think they're also annoying because it gets to a point where sometimes you get so focused on the trophies that they become a distraction from just enjoying the game.
I feel like they become a distraction, and they also detract, from the actual, in-game achievements and stuff like that.
Sure. I mean, I think some games, like, they make use of, like, in-game achievements tied to the, like, PlayStation achievements.
That's true, but, like, not all platinums involve completing the game,
Oh, okay. So you're saying, like, you might platinum a game, but you're not actually 100%.
You're not incentivized anymore. It, like, takes the incentive away to complete a game, within just the game itself.
Right.
I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I can see there's some... So, if you had it your way and you were designing trophies for a game,
right.
which you may be doing at some point in the future.
Soon.
More on that in a minute. Would you only want to give a platinum trophy to a player who has 100%ed your game?
So philosophically, yes.
Okay.
But realistically, probably not.
Okay. Yeah. I think it would be maybe a poor choice to restrict it to only the leadest and greatest of players.
Right. I would like to incentivize completing the game 100% in some other way.
Right.
But
I guess it depends on how hard it is to 100%.
Right.
This game.
That's true. And there's a big difference between Seraphim and Final Fantasy 16 or something.
Yeah. So enough about Atelier Ryza. But yeah, so now I need to track down Ryza 2 because now I want to play it on my PS5. It only released for PS4 and it's pretty much out of print right now. Supposedly there might be another reprinting of the PS4 copy coming to that Canadian retailer I mentioned previously, Video Games Plus.
Right.
So I'll be keeping an eye out for when and if that happens this year. Hopefully it does.
Is it expensive right now?
Yeah, if you want a used copy of Ryza 2, it's full priced.
Okay.
So, and I know that when Video Games Plus has sold it off and on over the last year or two, they've had it for I think $40 or $50 sealed.
Right.
So, I mean, I'd prefer to buy it that way.
Right.
But if it comes down to it, I might consider, going an alternative route. But yeah, I don't know, $60 for an open game? That's a little tough for me to swallow.
You can just buy it digitally.
You can, and it's actually on sale for $30 right now. Almost tempting.
Yeah.
But I would rather put that $30 towards a physical copy.
Right.
Yeah. It's worth noting that the games, these Atelier games, hold their value pretty darn well.
Oh yeah, the ones on PS2 and stuff go for more than...
Yeah. These niche series, they have a pretty tight control on how many physical copies they print. And that goes for... other series like The Legend of Heroes, like the Trails of Cold Steel.
Oh yeah, the Trails games.
Yeah, I mean...
Tales, I mean.
Oh, Tales is another thing altogether. Yeah. But yeah, some of those can be pretty... they really don't print that many, and they have a lot of hardcore collectors, so you don't see that many copies on the aftermarket to begin with.
Right.
And when you do, they're full-priced used copies, or even more expensive used.
I think this happens a lot with Japanese franchises that are very limited, and people discovered it decades later.
Yeah, and they want to go back and play them all. Yeah, but I mean, these are relatively new. So the reason I jumped on Ryza 3 is because it was $40, brand new, sealed, and I was like, you know what? In a year, you probably won't be able to find this game for $40, let alone $60. So I was like, I'm just gonna jump on it now, so I have it when I'm ready to play it.
Right.
Because yeah, I do want to get back to Ryza 2 at some point, and with my Portal, it's the perfect thing to play it on. It's just kind of a cozy game.
Yeah.
It's not super intense, crazy action.
Right.
Which is what I have been playing lately.
Real quick, last question. Is that one turn-based? Because I believe the one I played is...
Yeah, they are turn-based. Right. It's got an ATB kind of system, action time battle system. So, there are inputs. There's speed factors. So there's a little line. You see the characters kind of going up and down, and when it gets their turn to attack.
Right.
But yeah, it is turn-based, but it does have, I think there's some some timing elements to it to increase the strength of your attack. So
gotcha.
It's not totally passive where you can just it's not Pokemon where you can just set your Game Boy down and come back to it 10 minutes later,
Right. But it's
stuff will have happened.
Sounds like it's mechanics iterating on turn-based JRPG
definitely.
battles.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good.
And so what I have been playing this past week, and what I did pick up, was Grand Blue Fantasy Relink for the PlayStation 5, and a local mom and pop shop that we both know of happened to get some copies early. So I flew over on my lunch break.
Nice. And
grabbed the deluxe edition, which is a succinctly sized package. Comes with some little bonuses. The game, of course, which is something I was excited. The thing I was most excited about getting. a soundtrack. I don't know if it's 1 disc or 2 discs, but
It looks like 2.
it looks like it could be 2. But the music in this game is god tier.
Yeah.
Like, it's glorious. So yeah, I'm excited to rip that open, rip it, and put that on my phone and listen to it.
Is that a download code? What's that?
It's like the pre-order or like the early day one bonus thing.
Okay.
Or this is no, this is the deluxe edition.
It has a serial number on the back.
It does, which has already been redeemed.
Okay.
So, but thankfully the listeners at home can't see it.
Right.
If it wasn't.
Right.
But I guess you could. So it comes with a bonus sword that you can't acquire in the game.
Okay.
But it is kind of like a sword that's really only good for like the first half of the game, and then it kind of gets lapped by the...
Lost Odyssey did that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I still have like unscratched serial cards.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, they probably won't redeem anymore.
I doubt it, but
did you redeem one for your account at least?
Of course.
Oh, okay, good. Came with some starter items. Nothing that's honestly that important in like the late game where I'm at this point. And some alternate color packs for your characters so you can like swap out like the...
Cool.
Yeah, so...
Are those exclusive too, or is it...
Yes. So there is like a digital upgrade that you can net you these items if you purchase just the standard copy and you like get really into the game and you want to get this stuff.
Okay.
But keep in mind, if you made it to the end of the game and you're interested in this deluxe pack, the special weapon, which looks awesome, and there's like a transmog thing so you can make your weapon look like whatever weapon, so you could use it, but it's only good for one specific character, the main character.
Right.
And then the starter item pack, if you're at the end game, it doesn't mean anything. It's like it's great to it's like it's a nice bonus when you're starting the game,
potions and stuff.
Yeah, but it's like no use to you at this point. But the color packs are like the thing that might be of interest to people. And it just provides alternate color schemes for all the 16 plus characters in the game.
Cool.
And so there's that. And then it comes with an art book. This is basically the perfect, like...
Collector's...
Yeah, this is like my ideal one.
Right.
Like, it's got the game, it's got a physical soundtrack, not a download code soundtrack, and an art book. And then it comes with some like little mini postcard size prints, which I have yet to open. That's got some of like the key artwork that was made for the game. Mm-hmm. Onto the game itself, I have put since Wednesday. I've dumped like 40 hours into this game. Yeah, I kind of no-lifed it this weekend. I mean, it was rainy, so I was like, why not?
Who developed this again?
This is by Psy Games, specifically their Osaka team, and it was directed by a former Platinum Games person. Okay. Because I mentioned previously, originally it was a partnership between Platinum Games and Psy Games to create this game. Then there was some kind of split. Platinum went their separate ways. Psy Games went their separate ways.
This, right.
But people from Platinum jumped ship over to Psy Games to get the game over the finish line. And I think I re-looked it up. It was announced in 2017 and just now coming out. Yeah. Wow. In 2024.
Wow.
So it's had kind of a tumultuous development, but it's a perfect game. Like, I love it. I mean, okay, not perfect. Gameplay-wise, it's incredible and, like, just so satisfying. The sheer amount of characters in the game that all play completely differently from one another. It's like, imagine if there's a Bayonetta game. It's not quite as intricate as a Bayonetta game with the amount of combos a single character can do, but, like there's 16, 17, 18 characters that all have like their own unique moveset. Like that's kind of crazy and unheard of.
That's a lot.
Like almost fighting game-esque.
Yeah, that's a lot of design and a lot of different...
Yeah, like a fighting game, the whole entire game is just the characters, right? And then you just have different backdrops that the characters are essentially set in.
Basically.
But the majority of the development...
More recent fighting games have interactive environments.
Sure, definitely. Yeah. But I mean, I still feel like the emphasis on more than anything is that, whereas like something like Bayonetta, obviously the character is really important, but there's just one to develop. Here there's 16. It makes sense why the game took so long to make. And there's just crazy set pieces, awesome moments where you're like controlling like giant mech things and shooting cannons on the sides of airships and huge, massive dragons and all kinds of things.
Sounds like a cool game.
The story itself is very good versus bad, kind of ho-hum.
Yeah.
It's not really going to, like, challenge you to think too critically.
I find that to be a common thing in these kinds of games.
Yeah.
Like JRPGs and stuff. Even Last Story, as much as I love Mistwalker, that one felt that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like... Twists were the most predictable thing you could ever imagine.
It's like the guy that looks like he's probably bad is bad.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, like, that's...
The hooded character is the princess.
Right.
You know, hiding
I mean,
herself.
that game is, scarily enough, like, 15 plus years old at this point.
It's super impressive for the hardware and the time it was released.
But this game, I mean, obviously this game is publicly was announced in 2017, so who knows how long it was in development prior to then even.
Yeah, right.
I mean, this game practically took a decade for all we know to come to fruition.
Yeah, crazy.
But, this game is essentially funded because of a mobile/PC browser game.
Mm-hmm.
So I've heard from people who play the mobile PC browser game that, like, to see it realized, like, that world, those characters, and this crazy, 3D environment is, like, it's, like, so delightful for them.
Yeah.
Like, it's, like, just a wonderful day. But this is not like an open world game. This is like you have a hub, and you go out on story missions, come back to the town.
I like that format.
Yeah.
That's a very Final Fantasy Type 0.
Yeah, I'm partial to it too. The main story before the credits roll takes about 20 hours or so to get to. But then there's, like, a really big end game and additional story stuff if you want to go for it. And that part reminds me immensely of Monster Hunter, where you go out on these quests. Except instead of, like, having a big environment where you go and kind of track down the monster and chase it around the map as it, like, runs away from you, you're just kind of thrown into these arenas for the most part, where it's like, boom, you're in the boss fight now. Yeah. And it's satisfying. The encounters are really incredible, bombastic, not quite on the level of, like, Final Fantasy XVI's Titan boss, but I mean, some stuff not too far off from that. And this is where the sort of optional cooperative online element comes into play, where you can play with other people online. And so I've been enjoying doing that. A friend of mine, the one who showed us VR for the first time, he's been playing too, so I've been spending time with him online playing the game together.
Cool.
And so, yeah, I'm having fun grinding, making my character stronger, reading about all the, like, min-maxing, like, character build stuff online. Because
is it the kind of game where you can max everything out, or is it the kind of game where you have to pick and choose and there's no perfect character?
No, you can... I mean, the amount of time possibly needed to accomplish that is probably in the maybe over 1,000 hours.
Okay.
Because it is a game where, like Monster Hunter, you start to need a little bit of luck. Like, this monster you fight it, or this boss, it has like a 2% chance to drop this item you need to craft your next weapon upgrade or something like that. So you got to do, like, a lot of grinding against the boss, But I mean, the boss encounters are so fun that it's like you really don't mind it because you're having a great time playing the game as you try to go for that drop. Right now, I've been doing this one boss, and I've probably done it like 15 times in a row now, and it is not dropping its hoof that I need. Yeah. So that's kind of annoying me, but I'm still having a good time playing. And I'm kind of eager for us to finish this episode so I can get back. But not that I'm going to rush through the episode or anything. But yeah, that's Grand Blue Fantasy. If you like Monster Hunter, I highly recommend this game. It doesn't start off feeling like Monster Hunter, but by the time you're at the end game, if you like that kind of, grinding bosses and leveling up and increasing your, like, talents and constantly, like, expanding, like, you can keep, like, there's all these, like, you can +1 your weapon, you can unlock, like, additional, like, tiers so the weapons can keep leveling up. And
this is reminding me a lot of a game that I played on Vita, Ragnarok Odyssey, which is based on the MMO Ragnarok.
Right, but they specifically went for, like, a Monster Hunter-esque approach with that game on Vita. Yeah. And
it was great. Yeah. I loved that game.
I picked that game up too, not knowing what I was getting into. And it came out pretty early on in the Vita's life. I don't know. I think you borrowed my copy to play that.
No, I bought it.
You bought it yourself?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. But yeah, I remember playing it when we lived together. Mm-hmm. And it kind of turned me off because I wasn't really into Monster Hunter style games yet at that point.
Yeah.
Now I should probably revisit that game.
Collecting the cards.
That's right. It had that card thing. That was like its gimmick.
You could equip cards and stuff, but everything else is basically what you just explained.
Yeah.
That was a good game. I'll play that again. So I haven't been playing much. I've only had time to be playing Pokemon Go. But before you scoff at that, I've been doing a lot of legendary raids.
Okay.
Because I'm really trying to go for shiny legendaries.
Yeah. See, this is the thing that's gonna bite me in the butt.
Right.
Because I'm not doing any of these like legendary raids.
Yeah.
And it's getting to the point where that's like all I need now is shiny legendaries for my living shiny decks.
I'm looking into the future and seeing legendary shinies being the most intimidating part of the collection.
Yeah.
Because if you're not there for the distribution, how do you get...
And they don't all get distributed shiny, too.
Right. So this week I got a shiny Therian Thundurus.
Oh, man.
Shiny Therian Landorus.
Oh, man.
And a shiny Latios.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So I'm going hard.
Dang, man. That's like...
Yeah.
Now, if can I ask how much this has cost you?
Well, I leave Pokemon in gyms every day.
Uh-huh.
So I get the 50 every day.
Right.
So what, 1 week worth to get like the...
So it takes 1 week to get one remote raid pass.
No, to get like 3 remote raid passes.
How much is a pack of 3 remote raid passes?
Wait a minute. Well, 550 if you're buying them like that, but if you're buying them in any kind of box, they're usually less.
The remote passes come in boxes?
Right, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But anyways, I don't know.
Okay.
If I end up throwing $5 at... I've talked about this before, like, I'm not into microtransactions or digital goods, except for Pokemon Go.
Right.
That's my one exception.
I just hear stories of people, like, just remote raid pass after remote raid pass. I mean, I know they put a limit on that, so you can only do how many remote raids a day?
You can only have... You can't buy any after you have 3 in your inventory, but you can hold up to 5 because they're in packs of 3.
Right.
If you have 2 and you buy a pack of 3...
Sometimes you get them from, like, a 7-day research bonus, too, or something like that.
Very rarely.
Yeah, I think it's happened, like, once to me.
Yeah. But I have, 91 friends in Pokemon Go.
Oh, so you get invited to stuff constantly.
Exactly.
Yeah. See, I usually don't bother. When someone sends me a remote raid, I usually ignore it. Mm-hmm. So it's like people stop inviting me to the remote raids.
I wish you were able to like put a tagline or something on your character,
like looking for this, looking for that. Yeah. Like a little comment.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, so that's my haul for the week. I've also got some other shinies I didn't have.
Dang.
Picked up a shiny Ekans, shiny Scraggy, shiny Cottony.
There is a problem with shiny legendaries from Pokemon Go.
Yeah, that they can't be brought in.
They can't be transferred into the retail, the main series games, unless you already have that Pokemon shiny from like a retail game, essentially.
Right.
So that to me is like kind of frustrating. I don't understand that limitation at all.
Yeah, it's kind of crappy that they did that.
I kind of hope maybe at some point in the future, like with more generations of Pokemon games, they'll sort of just relax that rule.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make any sense to me.
I wish they would just get rid of the delineation.
Like the little Go symbol.
Yeah. Like, why even... If it's a Pokemon, just let it be a Pokemon.
Yeah. Like, why is it lesser? Just because it was caught and go.
If anything, there's an argument to be made that it's better because there's no way it's like hacked or gotten through.
I mean, yeah, someone could hack a Pokemon and add that Go symbol to the Pokemon's profile.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, I could see one argument being that the odds of finding a shiny, full odds, in like the main series games is much, much, much lower there than it is in Pokemon Go. It's like 1 out of 8,000 there, like 1 out of 300.
It's like 500 something, but I get your point that the odds are less, but when you're running around Scarlet and Violet, you can encounter 30 Pokemon in 1 second. Versus...
Right, Pokemon, which is just one
I guarantee
at a
you,
time.
time-wise, it takes longer in Go to find a shiny out of the blue.
I think if you're doing legendaries, though, that's not the case.
Oh, no. Yeah. That's the lowest rates that Pokemon has ever had for shinies.
Because shinies, typically, when you're doing legendaries, you save in front of the legendary Pokemon, and you just reset your game over and over again.
It's like full odds.
And go into the encounter over and over again until it's shiny.
Right.
And like Rick just said, full odds, meaning no shiny charm to cut the rate in half, no other bonuses. You're trying to get that Pokemon at 1 out of 8,000 some odd chance.
I think it's 1 in 4,000 still. It hasn't been 8,000 since.
Yeah, it's 8,000 from like I think the DS
Gold
days.
and Silver.
No, I know for sure Gen 3.
Oh no, you're right. Yeah. I think it was Gen 6 that cut it in half.
You're right.
I think it was X and Y.
Okay. So yeah, like it's been a minute since I've been working on it, but I was trying to get Shiny Arceus and Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl.
Yeah.
And I got up to like 1,000 some odd attempts, still no shiny. Yeah, I did the math where it was like if I'm doing it for an hour straight, I can do like 40 some resets. So I would just like do it. I would just like, okay, I'd done it for 2 hours while I was watching TV or something. So I just log, okay, I did like 90 attempts that round.
Right. It's cool that you're counting though.
Well, yeah, I think because I want to know. And it's like, you know what will be painful, though, is when I get to, like, 4,000 something.
Yeah.
And it still hasn't come up.
Yeah.
That's when you're, like, readying the shotgun.
Yeah. That's aggravating.
Yeah.
Because it's all dumb chance.
It's, completely.
And you're blowing hours.
And then what you do is you go on YouTube and you go look at, like, Shiny Arceus or, Shining Pearl. And then you see people's reaction to it. It's like, oh, it happened at... number 250, they got it like super early, and it's like,
Yeah, that's aggravating.
Yeah. And like for whatever reason with Arceus, it doesn't do the shine animation because Arceus has a special intro animation, and Arceus's color is like pea yellow, his shiny color, and so it's like, but it's a very like light yellow. Yeah. So it's almost whitish, which looks like Arceus already does.
So you gotta really know.
Yeah, so if you're like, sometimes I was doing it while I was walking outside on my lunch break or something. I'd just be walking and resetting. And like with the sun glare, I'm like, wait a second, did I just close my game on a shiny Arceus?
Right. Yeah, that kind of stinks.
Yeah. So it's not for the faint of heart.
No. Still the only way to get shiny Arceus, though.
Yeah, only has just become available in 2022 is when it first became available. It's never been available shiny prior.
That's crazy.
There was one time during, I think it was the Diamond and Pearl era or the Black and White era, where they had this online Pokemon hub. I think it was like Pokemon Dream Center.
That was Black and White.
Yeah.
It was a separate app on the eShop too.
No, that's Dream Radar. That's Dream Radar. But there was like a website you could go to and you could link your game to it and you could get Pokemon through the website that had their hidden ability.
Oh, okay.
But they also did this thing, I think it was as part of that, I could be wrong, where they let players vote on any one Pokemon that would be distributed shiny. And like there were no restrictions. It could be any Pokemon. Okay?
Yeah.
So it's like, I remember, first of all, who do you think won?
Oh, geez.
If you had to guess, come on.
Kyurem?
No. It was Mewtwo.
Oh.
And Mewtwo has already been distributed
I
shiny.
thought about that.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, people aren't that dumb.
No, but yeah, because the general public was involved. People were that dumb.
Yeah, okay.
So, of course, Mewtwo is selected and distributed, which is cool. I'm not complaining.
Yeah,
but like, because I don't think I had a shiny Mewtwo at the time. I think it was only
Victini to this day has not been released.
Yeah, I mean, it's a matter of time before Pokemon Go gives shiny Victini.
Yeah.
As like Unova Fest or whatever.
Well, we'll see.
But I remember seeing people online being like, Arceus, you need to vote. Like, people were trying to, like, campaign people, like, pick Arceus.
Yeah.
That's crazy to think that we could have got Arceus back then. But instead, we got something that's not shiny locked and totally obtainable, you know?
And distributed many times.
Yeah,
like
especially since then as well.
Oh, yeah.
So
that's dumb.
Yeah, I wish people picked Arceus back in whatever it was, 2010 or something like that.
All right, you ready to move on?
Yeah, let's move on.
Okay, so as I described announced last week, this episode is episode 20, and I will be debuting my weekly update segment for Seraphim. So I'll be talking about my development process for the week on my game Seraphim.
Right.
And you can, if you don't know what that is, you can refer to my Twitter handle, which is at Ravenheart Rex.
Yeah. I mean, let's briefly give a little backstory.
Sure. So I started Seraphim on May 10th, 2014, and it was originally intended to be like an arcade shooter that was kind of an infinite runner format, where you just play till you die, and hopefully one day there'd be a leaderboard.
Right.
That for me was developing a leaderboard was like a big undertaking in my mind. And that was the format of the game, and I did release that on iOS and Android, and got someone to help me with implementing ads, and released it that way. Later on, we met with Limited Run, and I think we've talked about this meeting before.
We've mentioned it, I think.
E3, we met with them multiple times, 3 times, I think.
Well, prior to the meeting with Limited Run, you did also release the game on PlayStation Mobile.
I skipped that part. So it also released on PlayStation Mobile in 2015.
Specifically, the Vita version of PlayStation Mobile.
Correct. Is there a different version of PlayStation?
PlayStation Mobile was also available on phones.
Right, but it doesn't access the same store?
No, you had to have an APK version.
Well, I did submit an APK though.
I don't. I mean, you submitted like an APK for like the Google store, but like there was like a separate Sony app store.
It was like .psm or something. I do remember that.
Okay.
Yeah, I can check. I still have the file.
That's besides the point.
That's besides the point. It launched on PlayStation Mobile, which was the closest thing to launching on any console I've ever gotten.
I mean, the game has a page on GameFAQs.
It does.
As being a PlayStation Vita game. Yeah. So, I mean, you know.
That's pretty legitimizing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I have screenshots saved on my Vita.
I still have it on my Vita. It still plays on my Vita.
I mean, like, store screenshots, of the icon and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So after that, we met with Limited Run, and we, at that point, were considering doing a Vita native launch of the game. We met with Limited Run, and it was kind of determined from the meeting that the game needed to be built out into multiple levels and actually be like...
There needed more meat on the bones to sell this as like a retail product.
It needed more of a scope.
Yeah.
So I kind of just figured I would turn that infinite level into multiple levels and kind of keep the same format going. Maybe introduce... that's when I started implementing the power-ups into the game to kind of give variety, and those could be introduced like progressively throughout the game. So from there, that was like the second transformation of Seraphim. So it went from this infinite runner to that. Then the landscape started shifting. I did start working on the game on Vita hardware. And
you got dev kits and everything.
Dev kits, test kits. It got to the point where I was implementing so much into the game that I was starting to realize the way that I had everything set up in the scene from the beginning was going to be an issue. Where everything's just exists in the scene on load. And that was not the way that it needed to be.
The Vita couldn't. They
Yeah.
just can't handle it like that.
The loading screen was taking like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Literally 10 minutes. And so, but to fix that, like, code needs to be reprogrammed. Like, it's going to be missing stuff if I just load it in. You know, it's going to be like, where's this?
Yeah.
So that wouldn't work. You know, that's a big re-engineering process. And that's still today where I'm at. But I did pitch it to East Asia Soft at one point, and they came back telling me that they love the art style, which is what everyone has always said. I've never gotten criticism about the art style. But they said that the game is basically too bland. There's not, you know, any kind of progression going on. So that, like, caused me to do this deep dive analysis into the game that led me to implementing certain other things, different player abilities, using the 4 face buttons, which I got 3 of them done. There's still a 4th one that is this big thing that's going to require a little bit more work, as well as different shot types and all this other stuff that I want. And I've designed gameplay to, like, include those things. So that's like a third kind of transformation of the game.
Okay.
So it's
gone. You're telling me that so this is kind of news to me a little bit, and I'm not trying to interrupt you. I just have a question.
Yeah.
So I mean, when we met with Limited Run, they basically said, "Hey, this game needs more meat to it." Yeah. But like the levels and systems were never built out when you had sent it to East Asia Soft, right?
Oh yeah, that was. They had the map scene and everything was in there.
So like you could select different levels?
Yeah. There were only like 6 levels selectable, but
okay. And they had unique playable.
Yeah, so at this point it was different enemies.
Okay.
You know, and really, I think, enemies were always randomized, but I think I had the power-ups spawning at different times, and certain power-ups only in certain levels, and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
I was trying to do that.
Alright, so there were no, like, objective, you know,
each one did have a stage objective at that point.
Really? In East Asia Soft, that wasn't compelling to them?
I gotta go back and look if that stuff was in there already or not.
Because, I mean, to me, I wasn't aware the game ever got to that point.
The stage objectives are in the game and have been for years.
I mean, I remember a long time ago when we came back from that very first Limited Run meeting, we, like, brainstormed, like, what would that look like, you know?
Right. Yeah, you're right.
But I don't remember. I mean, I know you kind of... At one point during development, you were like, I don't want to show you anything until I've got something big to show you, you know?
Well, it just looks unimpressive, and you're like, what is this? Where are you going with this? Until it's done, and
right.
You know. But, yeah, the powers were definitely in the game at that point. I'm not sure if stage objectives were done. I want to say yeah, because that was, like, initially... like how I was going to do multiple levels.
Right.
That was part of like Transformation 2.
Okay.
Design wise.
Okay. Now before you stopped development, there was one last push you had.
Yes.
When news of the PlayStation Vita store closing.
Right. And this is all if you're listening and you wanted to like see the history of what we're about to talk about. You can just go to the Twitter. It's all there.
Yeah.
It's like...
Yeah, it's like preserved.
Yeah.
Or the X account.
The X account. X, yeah. Formerly known as Twitter. But so it was announced that, you know, PlayStation Vita was going to get sunsetted and a development date or submission date was given by SIE, Sony Interactive Entertainment. And they, you know, the heat was on.
Right.
The pressure was on. And you and I talked about, like, what can be done to make it work. We talked about an arcade edition, Seraphim Arcade Edition.
Yeah.
Which would have been was a great idea.
Yeah. I'll never forget when the title hit me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was... Yeah, you did have a good idea with that.
I'll take credit for that.
And what ended up happening, long story short... I got kind of mixed information. Part of it was my fault, but there were a lot of people that didn't know, the answers and stuff that I needed. And I couldn't get it working. I couldn't get it connecting to the things it needed to connect to.
Well, you thought that the submission date was one thing, or that it had already passed, and in reality you had like more time, right?
Yeah, so I was hearing about an extension that
Right.
of course I wanted to believe in that.
Yeah.
I did get mixed information about the actual date.
Right. I mean, seemingly, there was like rumors online.
Also, at this time too, I don't know how much of this I can say, but there was a transformation from one submission portal to a different submission portal that was like a general transition that everything was going through at that time.
Right.
It just happened to align with,
Right.
that. So I was trying to submit through the old means.
Right.
And you needed to submit through the new means.
Right.
I don't
It
want
wasn't communicated.
Yeah.
That you shouldn't use the old one. That you would think for the old thing it wouldn't be on the new thing.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, I have to accept responsibility because you can't fix something that's not in your control.
Right.
And if you're responsible, then that means it is in your control.
Sure.
But, I could have been more on top of newsletters. I could have been more on top of emails and tech notes and stuff like that. I'm one man. I'm trying to make a game, trying to work a damn day job at the same time. So it just got to be too much to stay on top of the news and stuff like that. I'm sure I missed something.
Right. But the way that all played out dramatically in real time in those last couple weeks. The Vita community was like rallying around you.
So the Vita community, specifically the Vita Island members, was kind of how they identified themselves. It got down to the point where there were 12 games in development in the final weeks leading up to the date. And so everybody knew the 12.
Yeah, the 12.
There were images with like screenshots of all 12 of them going around Twitter. And that was exciting.
It was cool. I remember seeing like notable members of like the Vita fan community like talking about your game.
Yeah.
You got Sandeep, you have Britta, aka Food for Dogs. I think that's what her name is.
I know who you're talking about. Yep.
It was like surreal.
Yeah.
It was like a little bit of a roller coaster.
It was pretty.
Yeah.
It sucked having to go to work.
Yeah.
Every day because I could be working on it.
Yeah.
Anyways, so ultimately, I didn't.
You didn't make the cut.
I didn't make the cut.
Yeah.
So it is a canceled, or I guess canceled by default, Vita title.
So the arcade edition, that's not coming out. The full game is what's going to come out ultimately, right?
I might do a title in the future with that title.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
But it won't be that.
Okay.
It won't be what it originally was going to be.
Okay.
So the game features an arcade mode as well as the main campaign, and we were just going to try to release that and call it Seraphim Arcade Edition.
Right. So basically, an expanded offering of what originally launched on PlayStation Mobile. In a way.
Right. Yeah, exactly. With all the new mechanics working and stuff. Yeah.
Because the version on PlayStation Mobile was fairly bare bones. Some of the power-ups were there.
No. It was just enemies, and you had your super meter with that super thing.
Yeah.
The attack, which is still in the game.
Oh, okay.
But now it's one of the...
I swore some of the power-ups were in the mobile. Like three or four of them.
I don't think so. I know. No.
Oh, okay.
No.
All right.
You probably have played those on Vita.
Oh, maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, when you've shown me the dead kid stuff.
But the PlayStation Mobile version, even looking back at it, you could tell I was using a different tune shader at the time. It looks more plasticky,
right?
Not the same as it does now. But yeah, it was just shooting. And
I got a fun story for you. I booted up my Kindle Fire, like first generation Kindle Fire, Amazon's Android tablet.
Oh, you have the mobile version?
Yeah, I have I think like the test build that you like one of the test builds you sent to me.
Oh yeah.
And anyway, I was able to play it on the.
Were there ads in it?
No.
Okay.
This was like before, because it's not linked to the Google Play Store, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, we natively put it on that device.
Yeah, like you gave me the APK and I sideloaded it.
Gotcha. So anyways, that's a bit of the backstory. There's a lot of stuff that happened in between, a lot of ups and downs, personal hardships that resulted as me, came as a result of me just focusing entirely on this
Right.
and nothing else.
Yeah.
A lot of lessons learned, a lot of things that I didn't know to do that I should have known to do, and just because this is my first game, didn't, and things like that. I'll write a book someday. Anyway, so what I want to do with this segment is every week read a selected entry into my development diary. So I'm now coming back to Seraphim from a basically 2-year hiatus of not touching it, following what happened with Vita.
Remind me, was that 2021 or 2022?
It was, so I officially stopped touching the game on July 9th, 2021.
Wow, so 2.5 years ago they closed off Vita development.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll let you go now.
Okay. So, Thursday, February 1st, 2024. Today I am officially ending my Seraphim development hiatus, which began on 7/9/2021, due primarily to debilitating burnout and disappointment from my inability to have any version of the game ready for release on PlayStation Vita by the SIE release deadline. Excuse me. The last task I was handling pre-hiatus was modularizing the game's intro cutscenes for each of the 4 worlds within the gameplay scene, beginning with the first, which features the opening credits. The resources.load call for the opening credits textures within the first cutscene was not loading the diffuse textures for any of the opening credits objects. I recall having spent 2 or 3 work sessions trying to get it working. After reopening the project, I spent some time reviewing the issue and attempting new ideas to fix it. Ultimately, I switched my focus to remaking every old ellipsoid particle emitter within the cutscene as a new shuriken particle system. So that's what I did on my first day back.
Okay.
Was remembering where I left off.
Right.
Trying to fix it again.
So this dev diary is something you've been working on this whole time, right?
Oh, yeah. This dev diary goes back to 2020.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I think May 2020.
Okay.
I think I started it on May 10th, 2020 because it was the anniversary.
Okay, so it's got to be helpful to have that to go back to
and
know what you were doing.
Oh, yeah.
Especially after a 2-year break.
And I did remember where I left off because I was having such a damn hard time with it. But so what's going on here is in modularizing everything so that, like I talked about, with everything being in the scene, on load, not going to work. Everything needs to be modular, so the gameplay scene loads with basically just a skybox in it, which will load, really
instantly,
quick,
right?
like lickety split, yeah. And then spawn in or instantiate objects as needed and destroy out when they don't need to be in memory any longer. That's how games work.
Right.
And
So am I saying, let's say you're playing a third-person game. The camera is behind the character, and you're seeing everything in kind of like a triangular perspective around the character, right?
Yes.
Everything to the sides of the character that is off-screen and behind you is not present in the game, right?
So if it's like a big environment, you have what's called a culling or occlusion. Wait, what's occlusion mask?
Okay.
Yeah, an occlusion mask is basically like a circular region within where things are rendered, and anything outside the occlusion mask the renderer gets turned off.
Okay.
At what point they get booted from memory, I'm not sure, and I'm sure it depends.
So this is working differently than that.
Yes.
Okay.
What you're thinking about, or what you probably see in like Scarlet and Violet, with things in the distance becoming more like lower poly,
right?
Lower frames on animation.
That's called like LOD, right?
It's called no, those are mip maps. The textures, at least, are mip maps.
Okay.
LOD is called level of detail, and yes, it is that to an extent. But that involves lighting and shadows, for the most part.
Okay, I mean, like, I know games like Genshin Impact also have this problem where, like, from the LOD is kind of bad at times, where it really pops in. Like, you'll be like gliding above an area, and then all of a sudden the trees will go from these really low poly things to these like super detailed looking trees, and it's like distracting.
So they're probably using an LOD system that because that's Unity, that game. They're probably using an LOD system that they paid for, and it probably doesn't account for gliding very well. Like it wasn't designed for gliding.
I mean, not just gliding, but even like just like seeing things from afar. Like they I think it's like almost like they pop in too late correctly. You know,
shaders will do this, and LOD is mostly shader based. It's also lighting based.
This is the distraction though from the conversation.
Right. But even with toon shading, you see weird anomalies with like the toon outline and stuff like that, and even in Seraphim, I have to make sure that all of my geometry is closed and everything's welded. Like there's no opening within the polygons, like edges aren't bare. Otherwise, the toon shader and the outline won't know what to do with that, and you'll see weird stuff going on.
Okay.
But yeah, so
so you said here that you started to work on the old issue.
Yeah.
But then you switched gears.
I switched gears just because this is okay. The resources.load. So resources is a class and load is a method. And what it does, it allows you to load like an asset, like a texture from disk.
Right.
So what I'm doing here in the opening credits, I'm accounting for multiple languages. So I have my ENG little thing, if the language option is set to English, folder name, ENG / and the asset name.
Okay.
So I'm getting the opening credits in the language that they need to be loaded from disk and put on the object.
Okay.
As opposed to having all this like sitting in the game scene.
Right.
So that's how I'm doing it, is resources.load. Now, I've had resources.load work before just fine. For whatever reason, in this instance, and I've checked my line of code so many times, it's crazy. I don't know why it's not loading. My file names are right, my file hierarchy is right.
So it was a matter of you kind of just getting frustrated with that?
Yeah.
And switching to something more artistic?
I'm just beating at the screen and nothing's happening. So,
do you? So it sounds like you're at like kind of an impasse with this particular issue.
This happens a lot, though.
Oh, okay.
This is not like the first impasse I've crossed. It's basically what ends up happening with bugs and stuff like that. Mostly with bugs, you have to become a detective and figure out all the things that could be affecting this. And some days you get it. Like some days sometimes you stumble on it by accident. Sometimes you fix it while working on something else.
Okay.
And some days you just can't figure it out.
Okay.
And other days you wake up and come back to it and you do figure it out. So when that happens, you can either waste hours or you can move on and do something else.
Okay.
So it's still related to the same thing I'm trying to do.
Okay.
It's just another part of it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that is my return to game development after 2.5 years. So I'm
excited for you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's going to be good.
I think this segment's terrific. I'm looking forward to next week's update.
Cool. Me too.
I think you've got the next story, or our first news story here.
Yeah, so let's start the news. This is kind of old news. It's from January. But GDC released their 12th annual State of the Game Industry report, which
who's GDC?
GDC Game Developer Conference.
Right.
And they did this in connection with some other agencies. One called Game Developer, and Omdia or something like that.
Okay.
They're like social